Welcome to Dory Cote on Shamanism, a weekly podcast that explores one theme in shamanism throughout each month. Get comfortable, have a seat, and let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to this next 4 segments of podcasts. We're going to focus today on visions. And what does it mean when we have a vision? Welcome.
Dory, a listener recently asked, I have a lot of dreams that seem so real that they don't feel like a dream, but more like something that is actually happening. Do you have any ideas to share about that?
Yes, I do. First of all, when we dream, our spirit is free. It's far more free than it is when we're in our thinking mind during the course of any ordinary day in our waking hours. As a result, what can happen and does happen with many people is that they have ordinary dreams, which we're going to talk about in another segment, but they also have visions in their dream time. And that vision is really more an experience where what is happening is their spirit is doing what I call a walkabout in their sleep time. It's going out beyond the influence of their body and having an experience on the web, what I call not the World Wide Web like the internet, but the web of life, a place in another reality where there is a lot going on, and they're able to tap into knowledge, wisdom, experiences, and oftentimes visions of being in another place, perhaps with somebody who has passed over and having a conversation with that person. Perhaps they're seeing something in the future, or they're with a group of people that is downloading some information for them that is very important for them to hear and pass on to others. Well, these visions can take on many, many different kinds of dimensions, but they're different than a dream. And typically when we wake up, either in the middle of our sleep time or when we wake up normally in the morning or whenever it is that we're waking up to move on into our day, we have some sense that something different happened. This was not a dream. This was more than a dream. And what do we call it? How do we characterize it? I would say characterize it as a vision and take it seriously. Really play with it, write about it, draw about it, paint about it, dance about it. Feel it in your bones and allow it to really settle in, because there's something important going on there that your spirit is learning and passing on to you in your mind, body, and thinking self. And the more you pay attention to it and act on it or listen to it or do something creative with it, the more you will be capable of embodying that information and moving on.
Dory, you began to answer this next question already, which is, please explain what happens to our spirit when we're sleeping. Do you have anything more to say about that?
Yes, because our spirit is really in a state of expansion when we're sleeping. Despite the possibility that we are not having a vision, our spirit is expanded. It is capable of absorbing a lot more of what is happening around us here in this reality while we're in a resting place. And so beyond visions and dreams, there is a possibility that people have a sense or a feeling that their expanded beyond the boundaries of their body more than they typically are when they're awake. I don't have a name for that, except to say that I've heard from many, many people that they feel really larger than the space that they take up in their bed or wherever it is they're lying to sleep. And that, I believe, is because their spirit is more free to be outside of their body more than it even typically is in their waking hour. So that's what happens with our spirit. It expands and is tapping into wisdom that resides here on this plane where we live, that we're not often tapped into because our minds are very occupied during our waking hours.
If what you say is true and our spirit is sometimes doing a walkabout while we are sleeping, how can we be certain that it will return to us?
That's a great question. One that I certainly wondered about when I first became aware that I was having these vision experiences or visionary experiences or being way outside of my body during my sleeping time. What we know as shamanic practitioners is that our spirit is very rooted and grounded here. Our spirit has made a choice to come to be here in a human body for a period of time. Whatever that time is, we don't know. And it's very anchored. People sometimes think that, dying is really very easy, but if you've ever been with somebody who is in the dying process, it feels like they're hanging on by a thread, like they're going to go any second, and yet days and days and days can go by before their spirit releases itself from their body. I say that simply to point out that when we're sleeping and our spirit is wandering, doing a walkabout or whatever you want to name it, it is very much tethered here in your body. It's not your whole spirit that leaves your body, because when your whole spirit leaves, when those final chords release themselves, then you truly are dead. But when you go outside farther and farther to experience these other dimensions of reality during your sleep time, there is this anchor that is here with you. And you will come back. You may be out there for 30 seconds, and in your sleep state, it may feel like you were there for hours, because you're visiting a time that is outside of time and space. You're visiting a place that is outside of time and space. And so time means nothing when you're in that state. What I really want to get across to people is to release their fear of the possibility that when they're having these experiences, they're going to let go and not come back. Because the truth is that our spirit has a hugely large desire to be here in a human body. It's made a choice to be here. And so it's not going to let go that easily. It's not like just opening your hand and letting go of that helium balloon. It's far more complex than that. And so worry not. You will return. It is automatic. In fact, some of you might be aware that sometimes in the middle of the night, you have the sensation that you are falling and you crash down into your bed and it wakes you up. In all likelihood, that's your spirit returning to your body, and you're feeling that crash, that literal return. And I'm always amused when that happens with me, and, I chuckle for a second and then go back to sleep like, yeah, okay, good. I'm not sure what you were doing, but it will be revealed. I'll remember it when I actually wake up in the morning. So amuse yourself with that and pay attention to those visions that you're having while you're out there. they're part of the learning, the spiritual teaching and learning that you are in.
Before we go to sleep, can we ask our spirit guides to let us experience a vision?
Yes, that's a great idea. I sometimes do if I feel that it would be helpful for me at this juncture in my evolution to have a vision in the nighttime. Then I do that very thing. As I'm falling asleep, I ask my spirit helpers to take me on what I call a walkabout. Let me go explore some other dimension while I'm sleeping. Does it happen every time I ask? No. But it does happen frequently when I ask. Enough so that it is worth asking. So I encourage people to, yes, if that is something that you would like to experience, and particularly those who know how to do a shamanic journey, perhaps you do a journey just before you go to bed and ask your spirit helpers to take you beyond the journey into this visionary experience while you're sleeping. And then when you wake up in the morning, see what you remember about that.
What if we don't want to have these visions? What can we do about it?
There are times when people have visions in their sleep time, or really what I would call more almost an out-of-body experience in their sleep time that has a vision connection to it. And it feels unpleasant to them. And there are times when I have had those kinds of experiences and have come back and thought, whoa, I hope that doesn't happen again. And what I've come to know is that really that visionary experience that I was having was part of my spirit's initiation or evolution. And though it was a bit scary, in the end it was phenomenally helpful and pointing me in a direction that I could not really completely understand at the time. So first piece of advice I would have is that if you're having visions and they're frightening you, they're unpleasant enough that you feel that you don't want to have them anymore, then ask your spirit helpers to give you a break, to back away from that level of work at this time, that your spirit needs a rest and prefers not to have these experiences. And in all likelihood, your spirit helpers will abide by that request. If that doesn't work, then I would be really very intentional about talking with somebody else about the experience that you're having. Write about it. Do a painting of it. Really absorb whatever this message is that you're getting, because it's important enough that your spirit helpers are continually taking you there with a desire that you really get it. And once you get it, once you get the lesson or you get the teaching or you get the experience that they're giving you, then there won't be a need for you to have that particular vision again.
When I have been under extreme stress and doing intense meditation or prayer, I have sometimes experienced an open-eyed vision when I wasn't asleep, almost an answer to a prayer. Is that coming from the same source as the walkabout visions that you are describing?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm talking a lot about visions that we have in our sleeping state, but of course it is entirely possible to have visions in our waking state as well, because our spirit is able to expand far beyond our body and see things, particularly those of us who are much more likely to see experiences rather than hear them or feel them in a kinesthetic kind of way. So you could absolutely have this kind of an experience when you're in a meditation, or you're in a very restful state and staring out into space at some, particularly out in nature, looking at some beauty, and having an expanded experience of seeing the, quote, unseen, what is really not there in material reality, but is actually there in spirit reality. And that is of as much value as the visions that one might have in the dream state. They're to be paid attention to, not discounted, absolutely, and treated as something that is a gift and a blessing from your spirit helpers, that they are working with you at such depth that you're able to have these experiences with them and with their help. And anybody who has those kinds of experiences, I would encourage them to keep practicing, because it's a gift, it's an honor, it's a blessing, and there's a lot to be learned from it.
When someone is either experiencing dementia or is in the death and dying process, they often see people on the other side. For instance, when my father was dying, he was seeing visions of being a judge at a court near a river, and it was very clear that his body was not in the same place as his mind or spirit. Is this part of what you would call a vision, and is this part of spirit working to free itself from the body?
Yes, I would call that a vision. And yes, it is happening because the spirit is becoming less and less tethered to the human body during the dying process. It is always an honor to be with somebody who is dying and having those expansive experiences of having conversations and images of the, quote, beyond, being able to see the spirits of their loved ones who have passed before them, or being able to see really clearly this other dimension of reality that they can describe in language if they're able to speak. And those are visions, and they're helpful, to the people who are dying. They actually are incredibly helpful for them to make the transition from being fully embodied to not being embodied, because they can see and sense that they are going somewhere with some beloveds, and the vision becomes the reality for them, because they are truly making that transition from this dimension of reality to another. So yes, I would absolutely call those visions.
This completes the questions that we have prepared on visions. Do you have anything you would like to add?
There is a lot more that can be said about having visions in the waking state and visions in the sleeping state. We have a limited amount of time, obviously, in these podcasts. However, I will visit this topic again some more at another time, and delve into some of the more specifics, how to create more visions for yourself, for instance, when you're out in nature, because there are ways that one can create an intention to have that happen and make it manifest, because there is a lot to be seen if we choose to surrender to that possibility. And thank you. That's all for today.
Thank you for listening to Dory Cote on Shamanism. We'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, reactions, and questions. Come on over to dorycote.com and join the conversation. And tune in next week for more on this subject, or next month for a new subject. You can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes, or sign up on dorycote.com to receive notices when the podcasts are posted. That's Dory, D-O-R-Y, and Cote, C-O-T-E.com. Drumming and rattling by Dory Cote and Terry Morgan. Technical assistance and audio production by JillHackett.com. And this is Susan Savell, wishing you many blessings in your life. We hope to have you join us next